Welcome on into 19 on the Clock, your Tri-State High School and College Sports podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pushkar. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Jackson McCarty. And Jackson, it is the rounding down time to this rounding up start of high school football.
That was my favorite intro we've ever done. Can I say that?
Yeah. We're winding down to wind up.
Yes, we are.
I mean?
We are, yes.
That's the word I was looking for, was winding and not rounding. I don't know why I said that in the first place.
What is, we're going up to get down or something? Isn't that a country song?
Up all night to get lucky.
That's the Daft Punk. Shout out Michael Get a Fest. You know, Cincinnati ties.
Okay.
I
don't think that they have anything to do with Geta.
No. Well, and if anybody's ever, like, if this is the first time anybody's ever listened to this podcast, they're going to be like, this is not what I signed up for.
I promise there's other podcasts on this feed that are worth listening to.
Yes. But we appreciate your company. Regardless, you're right. We are 1 week away. We're really one Friday away from the high school football season starting. Otherwise
Saturday away from the college season starting.
Yes, otherwise known as the happiest days of my life.
True.
And I've been counting down and kind of giving you guys previews of every conference in the Tri-State, sans Indiana, because they're going to be featured on the first week of games. The two big teams I wanted to focus on there. And I don't know if you guys have been long listeners, you know that I'm not just the best at planning. So I have been doing 2 conferences a week. I started this week late. This week we're doing 4 conferences.
Yes.
So just because you don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah, and the math was a little off.
Yeah, it was just literally 7 days. Had I thought about it 7 days prior and fixed it, we'd have been good. But
and of course we've been doing all these previews leading up to the season and things like that. This week I am not going to be talking about any college teams in particular, but I did have a sit down and interview with a group of guys who are building a website that is kind of hoping to change the way that you watch college football live. And so we'll listen to my conversation with them a little bit later about their website and how you guys can use it when you're watching games this year.
Yeah. So obviously make sure to stick around on the back half for that, but we are going to start with the high school stuff. Start with the GMC. One of our bigger conferences in the Tri-State. Wanted to kind of space out like our largest in terms of like school size and stuff, just, you know, to try to kind of let it ebb and flow. And another one of those really big schools in the region, Lakota West, the Firebirds. We want to make sure to focus on them because they have a new look offense that I think is going to carry a lot of weight, going to be very impressive this year, despite who they've lost. So quickly, do want to talk about they went 11-2 last year, 36.5 points per game, 8.4 allowed. Their only losses were to Princeton by 8, St. X by 11, total of 11 combined points in those games that they lost. They also, St. X, they lost 2 by 3, beat by 4 earlier in the year, opened their season with St. X. So very fun little dynamic that we get to follow there. Like I mentioned, they did lose a handful of guys. Their quarterback, over 2,600 rushing or all-purpose yards. Wide receiver with over 450 yards. Their punt return specialist that had 2 return touchdowns. A couple defensive players. Like, it is going to be a very different team this year. But I have enough faith in what I've seen from what's returning on the offense to be really excited. So we'll start with Jackson Smith, the quarterback. He was the backup last year, but we did get to see him play a little bit. 12 for 18, 116 yards, then 229 rush yards, 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
So he got use, and I think that with an extended role, especially with these 2 running backs we're about to talk about, there could be a lot of enticement as to what you're going to see from this team. Running back Braden Johnson, a senior, almost 600 yards on 6.9 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns plus almost 150 receiving yards and a touchdown as well. And then Kenyon Norman, he is a junior, over 550 yards, 7.9 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns, another 160 receiving and a touchdown. So, they're going to have higher reps this year. They're going to be leaned on a little bit more. I think that this run game could be one of the most dangerous in the Tri-State.
Are they like a split back situation, or are they doubling up in the in some of the formations and things like that?
If I remember right, it's a lot of split back stuff.
Okay.
I think Tom Bolton kind of rotates more towards, like actual rotation instead of like, you'll be my fullback for this play, whatever. Yeah. It kind of is very Katron's Allen and Nick Singleton from Penn State to me.
Okay.
Where it's that 1-2 that, or, kind of Jonathan Stewart and Mike Tolbert, in the Panthers years, just those iconic, 1-2 punches. And for a team that did kind of run more central through their quarterback last year, seeing how they adjust, and while obviously Jackson still going to be a pivotal part of how they operate, I don't think that the QB play is going to be as necessary. Okay. And so seeing how that all shifts is going to be interesting.
Do you give this year as a little bit for Jackson Smith as a way to kind of get that year under, since he's a junior, get the year under his belt, come back senior year ready to be a more aggressive passer? Or
I think so. Well, especially he's already shown that he's a good runner, which is what Lakota West utilized last year. Yeah. And so just kind of showing the familiarity with the playbook, being comfortable, the athletic and physical growth naturally, just another year older. This feels like the gateway to next year because a lot of their key players that you pay attention to are juniors. But that's not to say that they're not going to be a 10-win team, at least to me, this year, as they try to ramp up into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit of a downer.
Yeah.
Not a down
slight,
year, but
I think, slight step down to take 2 steps forward in 2 years would be the way that I guess.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Otherwise, in the conference, we got the Princeton Vikings, who are another just extremely talented team in a very scary defense. The pillars of that are returning. So they went 10-3 last year. Some of their notable losses: Moeller by 17, Hamilton by 34, Moeller again by 18. The Crusaders are a pretty good football team.
I've heard sometimes
on occasion. We've talked about them once or twice. They do have a couple, or some pretty notable guys that are leaving. Shelvon Hibbett, 14.5 sacks. Kyle Garrett, 6 sacks there. And then since we're going to be focusing on the defense, I do want to mention D'Angelo Burke, their quarterback, is coming back, over 2,000 all-purpose yards. He's going to be very good. Aaron McFarland, there's some weirdness that we're hearing about. He might not play.
Okay.
But he is very talented, and if he does suit up for the Vikings, he provides multiple levels and layers to that offense. So if you see McFarland out on the field, know that the defensive backs are probably in for a long day.
Okay.
So let's talk about those 3 defenders that I'm really excited to be back, kind of serving as that core for the team. And it's a linebacker and 2 defensive backs. So Andre Parker, the coach's son, 107 tackles, 7 sacks, 19 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, 2 interceptions, and a pick 6. There was not a stat that he didn't pick up.
I was going to say that's and leading the team. I imagine.
Yeah,
from how you've set up this.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive he led the team, and if he didn't, he was a couple off. It was not many. And then, like I said, he'll kind of run, that front 7 unit, keeping the ground game under control. And then behind him, he's got 2 really talented defensive backs. We'll start Andrew Wells, 89 tackles, a sack, 6 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions, and a pick 6. Beast. Nate Kennedy, a senior, 46 tackles, 3 interceptions to his name. 7 picks between those 2 guys. It's a no-fly zone, and they know where their bread is buttered.
Yeah, it's to me, it's like Parker's there, watches the short passes, watches something the shallow plays. If they want to try and get it past him, throw it deep, well, you got to deal with two backs already covering.
Well, and Parker always finds his way to the ball in some capacity, be it running or, like you said, those short passes. So having somebody that's a magnet like that just floating around in your defense with everything 10 to 15 out and further guarded, it's hard to feel better than that as a coach.
Yeah, that's a nice lockdown defense. Do you expect to see their allowed points per game dropping this year then?
Yes. So last year they allowed almost 15, 14.8, I think, which very impressive number. Don't get me wrong. But you have to Moeller and Hamilton were their high scorers.
Yes.
And so if you drop those numbers, you're probably in a 12, 11 point kind of swing there, maybe even down into the single digits like we've seen some of these schools do. I think that this is going to be – I think their offense is still really functional. And not to say that Winton Woods isn't, but like Princeton has a year-over-year kind of proof to practice that their offense is more of a stable entity. Mm-hmm. But the defense could be very Winton Woods-esque to me.
Okay.
Where it's just like, good luck. You know, like, because Winton Woods, like, they had a lot of talent, obviously, like Justin Hill up front, who was an Alabama commit, Ryle Kelly in the secondary, who's an Alabama commit back this year. But it was always one of those things where it was like, sure, I'm scared about the rush, but it's whenever I have to pass that freaks me out. Mm-hmm. And that's right here is what I get from Princeton. So.
I don't envy any coaches that have to go up against that team.
No, it's going to be a long season for the people who oppose the Vikings for sure. We can go ahead and switch over to the Miami Valley Conference though.
Yeah.
Because we've got the CHCA Eagles, who last year ran so importantly through Braden Mitchum. 1,400 yards, 25 touchdowns on 198 touches. So he was just a beast. They're losing two receivers that had almost 1,000 receiving yards all told. Benny Smoot, 5 forced fumbles. Those are like the big names, but there's still enough promise based on what we're getting back from this 9-2 season that they felt necessary to include in this. They only lost by 1 to Brookville in the playoff opener that they had. Like, there's so much to this team that feels like it had the momentum that it dropped, and they have a chance to just pick it back up and run with it again this year.
Okay.
So long as they can replace that running production.
Yes.
So you do have Ridner Richard returning as their quarterback, 1,900 pass yards, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, plus another 140 rush yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. The lead running back coming back. And what is kind of scary is like Braden Mitchum had almost every touch. Mm-hmm. Because the drop between him and Sam Flagel, who had 15 carries, is immense. But he was running back too, for all intents and purposes. He had the second most carries. But he had 15 carries, 112 yards. So like 8 yards per carry, I think.
Yeah, just about.
But like chunk plays galore, as well as a touchdown to his name. And then if the offense does struggle early in the season, you do have a couple core defensive guys that I wanted to make sure to mention. Mm-hmm. Cole Cantor had 12 sacks last year. Max Laban, 4 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions as a defensive back. Like, cornerstone dudes, you don't have to panic by any means. But the offense is what we're keeping eyes on.
Okay. Yeah, they're there as a stopgap in a way. Mm-hmm. Make sure that the opposing offense doesn't get too out of control, and as the offense starts to warm up, at least early in the year, find their feel.
Yeah, exactly. It's a security blanket for growing pains.
Yeah,
and there's nothing, like that's the high school game.
Yes.
There are a lot of kids are going to be leaving every year, so you got to figure out how to make it work until everybody's comfortable.
Let me tell you, that's a college game as well.
yeah, no kidding. At a higher clip than high school, let me tell you. We can continue forth in the Miami Valley Conference, going to Cincinnati Country Day, the Nighthawks. This is another one where it's like, okay, who steps up here? Because a lot of their massive performers are gone. I would say their 3 most important players last year are graduating.
Okay.
But those players did help them go 11-2 last year. They lost to CCPA by 8, and then Anna by 42 in the third round of the postseason. Kind of a tough, whatever, and they are going to have to recoup. But it's an offense that scored 40 or more in 9 games last year that you're going to have to find a lot of replacement for. Elijah Gutman, over 2,500 yards and 31 touchdowns at quarterback. Running back Lee Thomas had over 1,700 yards and 25 touchdowns. Between those two guys, 56 touchdowns on offense.
And over 400 yards.
Yeah.
Or
4,000.
4,000, yeah.
Yeah, it's, an immense amount of offense. And then on defense, because I did say it was kind of a big 3 leaving, Ryan Coyle had 160 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
that's
that's a tough year. Now, they do have some guys that I'm interested to see that I do think could step up in very big ways.
Okay.
Thomas Huckleby is a sophomore this year. Had 938 yards as a receiver. As a freshman.
Very good.
67 receptions, 13 touchdowns, and as a defensive back, 5 interceptions. He also had the most rushing yards of any returning player with 119. He's going to be. We don't really see juniors on the top 19 list very often. He might be one.
Yeah.
Because whoa, what is that? Like it's just crazy. Like as a freshman to have that many yards.
Such an all-around presentation as well. Like 5 interceptions.
Yeah.
As a freshman,
mm-hmm.
you're beating out some big guys.
Yeah.
That are likely juniors, seniors, sophomores.
That the coach knows and has been with for way longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, Huckabee doing damage. Will Robinson on the defensive line last year had 115 tackles, a sack, and a tackle for loss. Think he'll get to step up as well. And then receiver/defensive back Brandon Profit had over 500 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as 68 tackles, 4 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, a pick 6. That receiver defensive back duo is like, I know I talked about another one earlier in this list, but like how are you supposed to pass on that?
And I love my two-way players. Mm-hmm. The only thing that concerns me is that because I read it a little bit where I'm like, okay, well, Huckabee's the guy on offense.
Yes.
Profit's the backup on offense in a way.
Yep.
But Profit is murdering on defense.
Yeah.
In that sense. So
they switch. Yeah,
do as much.
It's such a nice flow. And obviously Huckabee had more interceptions, mm-hmm. but it's like all those forced fumbles and
tackles for loss.
Right.
As a D-back.
As just just blitzing off. It's just insane. And so it's very interesting that all 3 of those players are contributing to the defense. Obviously the offense is what you worry about. But those guys are still going to step up in many ways, and I think going to make such a big difference to how this season looks. I do think they have a down year relative. I mean, you can't lose that much and just be like, no, the next guy's up will immediately be this good.
The question that would come to my mind immediately is just with the first week, I want to see what the QB does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And listen, you've got 3 more seasons of Huckabee. Mm-hmm. And I know Robinson and Profit are gone after this year, but it can very much scale to where it's like, okay, if this year isn't the one, we build for next, kind of like we were talking about with West, and just kind of get where you need to be while still showing, we say down year, 8 wins. 7, 8, 9 wins, with losing that much production, nothing to scoff at.
No.
But
it's not like you're suddenly going below 500.
Exactly. Exactly. These teams aren't falling off the face of the earth. They're just going to have to take a step back.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to Conference 3 now. The Southern Buckeye Athletic and Academic Conference, the SBAAC. I wanted to do 2 teams from the American because it feels like Williamsburg kind of rules the National.
Okay.
Last year they had 9 or 10 wins. The closest team behind them had 5. And they had a decent amount of returners. There's one of those,
an argument to be made.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it was easier to be like, oh, you know what? This battle in the American is going to be very interesting. Let's hyperfixate on that.
Okay.
And probably end up talking about Williamsburg at some point during the year.
Sure.
So Clinton Massey, the things we want to focus on here is it looks like an SEC team. You're focused on the running game and the defense. And an SEC team from 15 years ago. Not now. Mm-hmm. They're all West Coast and air raid and spread and what have you.
Yes.
9-3 last year for the Falcons. I just love this stat. 218-38 differential in 5 conference games.
Pretty good.
Yep, I'd say so. It's I miss those stats. That's part of why I miss football season so much. And I know I talk about it anytime we talk about these, but the Anderson Raptors were the king of that.
It's funny too because you're like, we're just a week away, but you're like, I can't wait. I can't wait 9 more days.
I can't. I have no interest in waiting any longer than I already have. Their season ended with a 3-point loss to a team we've already talked about, Devlin Daniel, the Indian Hill. They also had big wins against Roger Bacon, Harrison. It was important. They also have a history of winning. The conference website wouldn't let me go back further than 2017. Didn't have a losing record in any of those. Mm-hmm. Not going to bet that this year is the year that changes.
Sure.
Let's talk about the guys coming back because really they're the only guys they're missing that I really picked up on too big were their 2 leading tacklers, but I do think you can ultimately replace that. 2 running backs we want to talk about. Peyton Warren, who's a junior, over 800 yards, 6 even yards per carry, 9 touchdowns last year. Eli Muterspaw, almost 800 yards on 103 carries, 7.7 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns. That right there, I mean, again, the Singleton, Allen, Stewart, Tolbert, like it's
Yes.
just 1-2 punch galore. That as soon as you start to wear down the other one, the second guy rotates in and wipes you out again. And then on defense, defensive end Ty Martin, who had 8.5 sacks last year, and defensive back Andrew Smith, 4 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. Two of those guys, or Peyton Warren, Ty Martin, are juniors. Muterspaw and Smith are seniors. So it's kind of a nice blend of, like, even if you don't fully bring it where you need to be, which this is their year, without losing too many guys. If you can't fully bring it to where you are, you don't have to completely empty the cupboards next year.
Yeah. And, you talked about losing the leading tacklers.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as that is always a hurt to a team in some ways, I also think at the end of the day, those tackles are just going to go to the players that come up instead.
It's more a leadership thing.
Yes.
Usually. Like those guys that are high volume tacklers, that's just high effort guys that are leading the way. So you do want to make sure to mention, it's like, hey, that is going to be a thing that you're looking for early. But well coached teams are going to create those.
Yeah, you're going to make a leader. Whether it's Smith now going, I have to step up and be the senior head of defense or whatever, things like that. So.
100%. And then they'll be battling it out in the SBAAC with Batavia.
Okay.
Who had a very impressive offense last year that gets to stick together this year. 8-3 last year, 43 points per game across the season. Worth noting, Clinton Massey beat them 41-8 last year. Big lopsided loss.
Tough loss.
Yeah, you have to admit it. But when you look at who's returning for this offense, you have to think that they're going to put up more than that, and you have to think that it would, because it was at Clinton Massey. Mm-hmm. So it's like you bring them home, you have all this returning talent, you have that chip on your shoulder from last year, you got to watch out. Starting with Carson Harris, he has over 3,500 passing yards, 42 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, almost 63% completion, another 506 touchdowns on the ground. Running back Xavier Eisen they didn't really use the running game that much, but I am curious to see how much he steps up. Almost 400 rushing, 4.8 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns, plus another 480 as a receiver.
I was going to say, getting almost 500 yards as receiving back.
Yeah, like a true, just fixture in the offense. Like, even if his rush totals didn't look as great, and obviously Carson led the way in rush yards last year. But curious to see how his role changes. Mm-hmm. And then as receivers, you have Marcus Hughbanks returning, who has over 3,800 yards on 67 catches. That works out to 19.5 yards per catch.
1,308 yards. You said 3,800?
Whoa, yeah, no, yes. 1,308
yards. Let's not have one receiver have more yards than the quarterback had passing.
Every other pass that Carson Harris completed was behind the line of scrimmage. And in turn, moved Hughbanks back.
Yeah,
exactly. It is worth noting they also lost Max Melman, who was a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't think I mentioned that at the beginning. Yes. So somebody I think has to step into that role. Somebody I think has shown a tremendous amount of promise. Joey Hargis, who is a junior. He had 266 yards on 36 catches last year. Works out to a little over 10 yards per catch, and then 3 touchdowns. So more reps, more targets, more anything. Those numbers are going to jump.
Good opportunity to step up into a number 2 role.
Exactly. It will have to be a true number 2 because the number 2 left last year. Yeah. It's not going to be a battle. I think Hughbanks has established himself very well.
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
This is my domain. Also, quickly, do want to say, very talented guys on defense as well. No, that wasn't the focus. But Vontae Callaway, Andrew Manns, Owen Swart on defense. Very, very quality guys. Make sure you know them if you're playing them too. So, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and so with the Southwestern Buckeye League,
yes,
we went a different direction because a lot of them are not really in our DMA. So I just want to talk about Bellbrook this week.
Sure.
The Golden Eagles, no real discernible theme or whatever. They're just good. 12-2 last year, 136 allowed all year, 17 allowed in 4 conference games.
Okay.
So see what we're cooking with here. Beat teams like Alter and McNicholas, who we've talked about on here. They have some important guys leaving: Preston Pettit and Kelvin Chukwu, maybe
Ochechukwu.
Ozor.
Yeah.
I apologize for butchering that.
Yeah.
But of the returners, tons of talent.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent Epifano is how I'm going to go with there. Over 1,200 rushing yards, 6.6 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns. Defensive back Carson Pund, who's a junior, almost 100 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 picks, 2 pick sixes. And Noah Barrios, 37 tackles, 3 interceptions as a defensive back as well. A lot of very talented defensive backs on these lists today.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed as well. It's just like this feels like the collection of teams that are nightmares for quarterbacks.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because I don't feel like we talked about that many quarterbacks either. Like I feel like quite a few teams, it was like, here's the running game that you want to know about.
And a lot of them were quarterbacks. A lot of them had quarterbacks who were graduating too. Was the big thing.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that marks the end of all of my previews and stuff. I've again so excited to put these in principle and start talking about the actual games. But I know there's probably a handful of people who've been waiting to hear your interview because I know that I want as much enjoyment as I can possibly get while we have football back.
Well, and as you talk about, we're going to be talking about games again. And as if you've been listening to us last year, and very well through all of our practice rounds as well.
Yes.
How much I enjoy advanced statistics when it comes to college football and kind of looking at where teams stand and things like that. And so I got to talk to a group of guys. Their website is called GameOnPaper.com.
Okay.
And it is essentially just a collection of previews. But the big thing that you can do as well is look at comparing teams with leaderboards, players with different estimated points added and things like that. And you can watch games live and get advanced statistic feedback that you can't really get in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
So I got to talk to them earlier this weekend. So we'll go ahead and listen to that now. Well, joining me now are some of the brains behind GameOnPaper.com. Joining me is Siam Gilani and Akshay Iswaran, the lead developers, and Jack Purdy, the social media manager. So let's kind of start off. Siam, you were kind of the key part in starting this project. How did that all come together for you?
So initially, I was really intrigued by Ron Yurko's and Maxim Ventura's paper at Carnegie Mellon on the expected NFL WAR, which dealt with expected points models. And I was born and raised in Tallahassee, Florida, so college football is king to me. So I wanted to create an analog to that for the college football sphere and put it into the public analytics space. And I was already starting out working on it. And then I found out there's already a project in development on that, CFB Scraper. And that's where I was introduced to Mayapan Sabaya and Parker Fleming, who are very instrumental in guiding me on this little pieces of the journey into getting into expected points models and win probability models, just a whole bunch of R programming and getting into the analytics space. And so from there, I started working on trying to imitate everything that the NFL guys were doing. NFL Scraper with Ron Yurko, that eventually became NFL Fast R with Ben Baldwin and Tan Ho and Sebastian Carl. And similarly, we went through providing CFP Scraper and then providing another packages in the same vein that solved a lot of the same issues, CFP Fast R. And basically, we followed the exact same progression path. And at the end of it, for the NFL side, there was a live website that was extremely well visited and well mentioned in the actual Twitter sphere. And it was super important for us to at least have live analytics. And I really wanted to imitate that, but I wanted to make it with a slightly different technology stack. In it turned into a bigger challenge than I was ready for at the time. And so I wound up spending about a month rewriting a whole bunch of things from R to Python and then into JavaScript, just trying to figure out how it all worked together. And I was complaining in our Slack to like the 12 or so people that were willing to listen. And sometime in that like month and a half or so before then, I had met Akshay. I was introduced to him by Mayapam. And he heard me whining and was like, "All right, do you need some help? You want me to take a look at it?" And thankfully he did, because as soon as he took a look at the code, saw what was wrong, he rewrote everything and rebuilt it, and it was up by that weekend, the same week. And I just couldn't be more grateful to have a working partner like that, because he was instrumental in just getting this thing off the ground and then making it what it is today. I mean, I just had the want really and a little bit of the legwork, but he made it really happen. Incredible guy to work with.
That's awesome. Akshay, can you share a little bit about what you were able to do in that time, as you mentioned, and kind of what you've been working with it since then?
Yeah, so I mean I came to sort of the analytics ecosystem from a software background, right? I used to work at Salesforce, so building, email marketing software, and that's not necessarily really the most interesting thing in the world. Uh, and so this is kind of what I was doing in my free time, right? Like working with college football data, and at the time, um, writing a lot of like piggybacking off of what Simon and his crew had written to build a lot of charts and a lot of data reports for Georgia Tech. But we were writing for SB Nation blog from the Rumblesea at the time, which Jack is now the site manager of. So we were doing a lot of that stuff, and then I got more and more interested in sort of like how the data science pieces work, and still from that software lens, right? How can I integrate these data science pieces that other people are really good at, but my core competency is software. So how can I square that circle and get integrated and get plugged in myself? And so when Simon had this project idea, this is now like I think is this 5 years ago now? No,
Oh my
6 years.
God. Yeah.
I'm trying to find like the first commit that we made to this repo. It's gonna take me a minute, but like when we had this idea, it was probably like 2020. Like the first version went up probably either the winter of 2020, like right at the beginning of the year, or like the end of 2020. It was somewhere time during 2020
Yeah.
that we got everything working. And it was really just a matter of, hey, like, how do we take some of the processes that Simon and Mayapan and Parker had built for stored data and make them work with ESPN's GameCast feed that we can get live. And as we kept working, as we kept finding nooks and crannies, getting stuck in on like, here's how the weirdness of ESPN data versus the stored data. We're able to build like a pretty good knowledge base of how this live stuff works, and we ended up being able to get, hey, like let's get the same models that we have on the R side, or even like let's borrow a little bit from the NFL Fast Star guys and rebuild some of those models and apply those to the data that we have coming streaming through from ESPN. And so there's just a really fun project of just solving a lot of not necessarily like some of them are data science problems, but a lot of just like traditional software engineering problems in the domain of sport and football. And that's like a really fun itch to scratch, especially as someone that's pretty green in their career and doesn't really like coding in Java all the time.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I've always seen. I started out in college in computer science, and I know a lot of people that went into that field that love college football, and there's a little bit of like, I'll say it like nerdiness to sports at the heart of it, even when you don't always think about it. So, I guess my kind of next question is, what made you want to put this together and make it more accessible for the common football viewer that maybe isn't always thinking about estimated points added and success percentages and things like that.
I mean, the most suboptimal decisions I feel like were made in college at the time. They weren't as aggressive as they needed to be. Well, and maybe they weren't even taking advantage of like short yard, fourth down decision making. Simple as that. It gave us an avenue into like what win probability and expected points added. It was a natural analog to like explain here's what it actually would look like. And as much as anything, like we wanted to show we could do it at the scale of college football rather than just the NFL. There's more teams, a lot more like different data, and they like a lot of teams that don't get analyzed enough at all. So like it gave us an easy way to give something to everybody in the field. Like
I
in
think on
in
top of
college
that
football.
too, it's like there to that last point, it's the democratization of data. Like traditionally, a
Yeah.
lot of this stuff is behind a paywall, right? Like there's a really good article in The Athletic talking about fourth down decision making specifically. I think it's from like 2 years ago that talks about how like now everyone on a college staff has the big book of fourth down decisions where you have a coordinator just flipping through it in order to make a call. But instead of that, now like our friend Jared Lee was gracious enough to he built a tool for that online. He made a shiny app for it, a website for it, and he was gracious enough to let us plug that into Game on Paper. And now anyone can evaluate fourth down decisions live, right? It drop of a hat takes a couple seconds, but like that's better than flipping through this massive book that you now have to be on a college football staff and pay whatever to some company for, right? And
Mhm.
it's lowering that barrier to entry to a lot of this, a lot of what people see as like this like ivory tower, like, oh, you need to have a math degree, oh, you need to, yeah, where it's not really that hard, right? Like you explain the logic behind expected points or win probability without even numbers, and a lot of people understand. They understand what leverage means. They understand what these things mean in a intuitive sense. It's just all we're doing is putting a number to it. And then when you fit those pieces together that way, it makes a lot more sense to a lot of people and it makes the discourse like a lot more informed, a lot more insightful, a lot more evidence-based rather than just, Stephen A. Smith going on First Take and saying whatever, right? And so it makes us, I think, a more informed fan base for the sport and able to have really good discussions about, okay, strength on strength, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, it's I always kind of look at it in a way it's like putting a number behind a vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've going through your website, you've got a lot of great data, and right now there's already previews for what is it, next weekend, right? No, 2 weekends. Whew.
13
You
days.
scared me for a second.
Yeah, two
13
weekends
days.
away. I can never keep them straight, but it's fine. 2 weekends away. Iowa State playing Kansas State already. Idaho State, UNLV, Fresno State, and Kansas at the top. And like a lot of sites, you have the game previews comparing offenses and defense, looking at what each team has going for it. But like you've been mentioning, it's this live aspect to your site. Can you, so just because I've not been able to see it in action just yet, can you explain a little bit of how it works and how people are able to use it when they go on the site?
Sure. I mean,
Whoever.
really, I think you should think of it like conceptually as a second screen experience to what you're watching on TV.
Yes.
Right. So you get it's the same as having Gamecast in your hand on an iPad or on a phone, but you're getting a little bit more insight, a little bit more advanced stats you're getting at the same time. So you get the normal box score, you get passes, rushes, catches, the yardage, all that stuff, but on the same sheet you get EPA, win probability. You get that on a per play basis, how each play affects overall win probability. And then you get the big, ESPN style win probability chart as well. We have a little bit of a different model than ESPN does, but you get all of those sorts of metrics exposed alongside your traditional metrics. And again, it's that reducing that barrier to entry, reducing that barrier to actually accessing these metrics that we're trying to focus on when designing the site. And like everything is generated off of ESPN's Gamecast feed. So what you're seeing from ESPN Gamecast, we're just adding on to it. We're not changing it. We're not like I don't know. I don't know what other
We're
aspect that we could
literally
be
like
doing.
we were partly disappointed in the Gamecast experience. We wanted to add to it a lot
Right.
because we felt like it was possible, and we were wondering why no one was doing it. And
Right.
so
So
like
it's
we put the onus on ourselves to actually get it done and say, hey, we can make these box scores live. They may not be terribly accurate in live, but they get better as time goes on.
yeah, I think
It gives you like more like a better way for you to analyze the game at the half, the each quarter, and you can like even discuss it immediately post game. You have like some frame of reference to go on.
yeah, and I think it's more interesting or more insightful than just looking at that stat broadcast box score that gets posted right at the quarter mark. I know Jack, you see that stat broadcast.
Yeah, no, when I'm covering
Uh,
games, I'll have the game on paper window pulled up with the stat broadcast at the same time. Stat broadcast is good to that's usually quicker than ESPN in terms of what actually happened on the field if I'm in a press box context and just get some raw numbers. Like it's good for just like the here's the box of rushing yards, passing yards, all those little base stats. Then you go to the game on paper side, get that back score, and then you're basically taking, okay, here's what Stat Broadcast has and ESPN also, and turning it into a much more like impactful way of understanding what's actually happened so far, like who is actually doing things that are positive or negative for their teams in a given context. So, and which, as you kind of mentioned, like one of y'all mentioned, you can kind of base it on vibes. Like you can kind of eye test a lot of this, but it makes it so the understanding you get from getting actual values to it makes it so much. It makes it so much better to watch because you actually get a better sense of what's happening. And most of us haven't played a down of football in our lives, aren't coordinators, aren't people that study this all day long. So it kind of is a cheat sheet to just getting that level of understanding you otherwise would have had to had being in the room where you figure out all this stuff.
I would also add on top of that too, the way that we slice and dice the data also helps out a lot, right? You
Yeah.
get a
Yep.
lot of situational breakdowns and situational effectiveness or context-driven effectiveness, right? Like
Mhm.
how good is this team running the ball on standard downs? So those first two downs in normal yardage situations, I think it's like first and 10 and like second and 7 or
Something
greater,
like that.
right?
Yeah.
How good are they in high leverage situations, right? Like third and long, fourth and long, fourth down conversion rates, third down conversion rates. Um, how effective are they throwing the ball? How explosive are they? Like I think it's
We
not
haven't even mentioned our like other major influence, the five factors of Bill Connolly. Because
right.
we're referencing them as if they're just a regular, um, everyday metric, but that's exactly what we're trying to imitate as well. Like we're trying to add expected points to the five factors of it, like explosive the situation. Yeah,
Exactly. And so you getting all of that contextual information, you get a lot more insight. Again, you're able to be a lot more informed in that quarter, that halftime, that third quarter analysis than you are just with the stat broadcast screenshot. I think we do a really good job of trying to provide as much context as possible, right? Like not turn the samples into so small that you can't, it's like not intuitive, but like you're able to draw enough conclusions about the way that the game is going based on all of these different contextual factors and where teams are failing or succeeding.
Yeah, yeah. I love that, and I think as you said, having it up on a second monitor, I'll have my quad box of games to watch on one. I'm gonna have a quad box of these on the other at this point.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, and you guys just launched the website in the last few weeks, correct? Uh, or
We
how
had
has
some updates this year,
Mhm.
but this we've been doing this. Jack just came on last year and has been kind of helping us out on the social media side, so it feels like a
feels
new
like a,
website.
yeah.
But I like to think that our analytics heads on social media have been using us probably since like 2021 when we first got on the scene. It's weird to think that this is like the fourth, fifth
I didn't believe you when you
season.
said that. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
it's really been.
Yeah, but we have, but I think like we've gotten better over time about not just providing data for live games. Right now, you can go to the site and find team leaderboards, player leaderboards, these team radars. It's not just the previews either, right? Like we've gotten a lot more depth over time, and a lot of this stuff has just been launched in the last year just because of the feedback that we've heard from people that use the site regularly. Like we're saying, like people like Jack who are sitting in the press box or that are writing game previews or gamers after the game, right? Like they really appreciate having this stuff available in order to put together a lot of this content. And we like see that as a really core audience for us, not just the nerds out there that are having this as a second screen experience, but a lot of those journalists, whether that's for blogs, SB Nation blogs, like from the Rumble seat that we were working at, um, or other professional journalists, right, that just want to add a little bit more color, a little bit more insight into their gamers. So yeah, we've tried to tailor what we provide to those kinds of audiences over time, and it's just been growing ever since.
And have you seen a good response online and things like that? More people using it, better, more interactions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, part of why I bothered to put all this on the internet was another. This came from another complaint. Actually, it'd be like, oh, these people are using the thing and they're not crediting it right. I'm like, dude, if you put it on the internet on social media, people will know it exists and like where it's coming from. And so, just doing a proper social awareness kind of campaign was kind of the whole reason why we put it up there.
Simon and I are notoriously, this is going to sound really, really weird, but Simon and I are notoriously humble. Like we just don't post on social
This is true.
media
I
about
can
the
vouch.
projects that we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
can vouch. I can
Jack
vouch
is
for this.
encouraging us to be a little bit more, swing your sword kind of
Uh,
mentality.
Absolutely. A little bit more on that.
Oh,
No, it's been really
for the
cool.
record,
Go
I
ahead.
just want to say like that the game on paper stats have been like featured in I have it on my resume. Washington Post, Action Network, NBC Sports, 247, Sports Illustrated. Like everybody uses it here and there for the like betting models.
It
And
gets
so
it, yeah.
it's used. That's where it's mostly used in reference to.
It gets
I
it
think it's
gets
an
there.
interesting use
Yeah.
case.
It gets there, and then I mean the last year, literally was what 2 weeks before week one, I think last year, that we actually were like, hey, we are on social media now. Like we are here as part of the football watching community that is actively on the internet and watching football at the same time with people all over the country. And I think that helped, at least for me. I think that I hope for y'all too. It helped understand like how far reaching the website gets on a Saturday or whenever there's a game. Like understanding like, okay, how many people are actually using this? How many people are have this side by side with their viewing experiences? How many people are referencing the work during the day when there's football on? And that's been really enlightening to see. Like, well, I mean, I remember during the national championship, I was throwing up a bunch of screenshots from throughout the game just to get what this looks like out there. And when everyone's watching one game, it's really easy to see like, okay, here's how many people take usefulness from this information uh, mid game, which has been really cool. And so, I mean, we're sitting at 4,500 followers on a Blue Sky right now, about 2.5 on Twitter. And so like it's getting out. I think that the test this year is to see how much wider it can get to just the standard fan versus the people that do this, that take care of this, cover this for a living. So if you cover it for a
Yeah.
living, it seems to have gotten to those places pretty deeply at this point. And so it's just like, okay, hey, do you want to understand why your team is doing really well or sucks right now? We can help you with that, and provide that in a minute.
Yeah. We're running a little bit low on time here. I'll kind of let us wrap up with, is there any plans right now for future features that you guys are wanting to add to this? Any other statistics that you think you want to get involved on the website in the future, or kind of what's next is really the big question.
I think for us, we're working on updating a lot of our models for the first time in a few years. I think since we launched the site, so that's seeing what the differences are going to be between year over year and model to model. I think is going to be super interesting. Um, I think we're working on a couple of site improvements here and there. I think speed has been something that we've been asked about a couple of times, and just making sure that once ESPN has something, we have it the next time or the next couple of minutes, or even like Jack said, when we're during a set or up during a semifinal or up during up during the national championship, it doesn't take like 30 refreshes to hit the site. So, software development is hard.
Yeah.
I think is kind of what I've learned, not just in my career, but also in like working on this. Like, it's a small community, but it's a very like intensely interested, intensely like they want the information right now and want to talk about the sport right now. And so we just have to be, on top of our game in order to support that.
Perfect. Well, hey, thank you guys very much for taking the time out to talk to me about this. We'll have a link in the episode description to Game on Paper if you want to bookmark it ahead of the college football season. So, Simon, Jack, Akshay, thank you all for taking the time out to do this. We'll send it back into me and Jackson. So thanks again to Jack, Siam, and Akshay for sitting down and talking with me. One thing that they forgot to mention after we wrapped up was kind of the stuff that's in the back end of what makes this all to come together. So if you at home are interested in advanced analytics and statistics, whether it's college football, they also have some stuff with college basketball, they said. Sportsdataverse.org is one of the big ways to is one of the big like connecting tissue of all of these different sites and things like that. And then they also mentioned collegefootballdata.com, which is run by Bill Rajewski, excuse me, who is actually based out of Cincinnati as well.
Oh, right on.
We figured out. And you can get started with statistics there. He has some free programs and things like that to kind of get you started on understanding all that, because there's a lot of coding and stuff in the back end that, as I was saying, was a little bit above my pay grade, but yeah, like you got to see the website a little bit, and we'll have some examples running on the screen during that interview. I love it.
Yeah,
what I mean?
So like obviously a lot of it will be like for live games, and obviously like it's not a gambling website, but there are ways to kind of repurpose it if you are a sports bettor. But you can also get into game logs from last year. I was tooling around a little bit in the SMU Penn State game and the bowl game from last year. And it's very fascinating how in-depth everything is. There's really not a stat that you're going to be able to miss out on. It shows you all kinds of different dynamics, and it makes you feel more I don't want to say aware of the game, but like it makes you feel more ingrained into like the analytics and the kind of like the game math that a lot of these coaches are having to do anyways.
Yes, and the thing that I love too is just how far back you can go.
Yeah.
Because you can go all the way back to 2002.
Yeah.
And maybe was it even 2001 that I was just looking at, or no, 2002 is the limit. But you can go back to the Ohio State Miami Fiesta Bowl, double overtime,
and look at all the advanced analytics.
Which I'll tell you this, I watched that on my grandparents' couch while my parents were on a vacation, and because that is a game that I just have burned into my memory. But like looking at the win probability from that, that was something we didn't always look at back then.
No, you just went, oh my gosh, this game is insane.
Yes, and it always was.
Yeah,
it always was an insane game. But yeah, so I think it's just a great way. It's one thing that I love where you can start using those things to draw a better, and it's like I said, it's putting a visualization to vibes is how I always look at a lot of advanced stats in a way, because it's just kind of like, yeah, you can't necessarily perfectly measure that, and it's all based on other things coming together.
Yeah.
But it's just I love being able to kind of visualize that and actually have a number to go with it, rather than just saying, well, yeah, like clearly this is a play where it should be a pass.
Yeah.
But you can quantify it and explain it instead. So, so gameonpaper.com, you can check it out. They have previews ahead of each week, and then you can watch along with live games, or go back and double check games after they're done. So
I'm going to spend a lot of time on that this afternoon. It's going to be really cool. Throughout the season,
I'm gonna walk past your desk. And you're just gonna be looking at it every.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be building like graphics for the thing. And I'm gonna be delayed. I'm definitely gonna be delayed.
Sorry, bosses. But yeah, you can check out their website, and of course, you can also check out us online. You can find the video versions of this podcast if you're listening on fox19.com, on the Fox 19 mobile app, and on the Fox 19 YouTube page. And if you aren't already subscribed to the audio version, we have a new surprise for you every week.
Yes, we do. Every Monday.
On Mondays, we're going to be getting new episodes of Offsides with Gabby Sorrentino. She's going to be sitting down with different athletes all around Cincinnati. You're going to ask me who her first episode was?
I was going to ask if it was already posted.
The first episode is already posted.
Because I thought I remembered who. Is it Brady Singer?
It is sitting down with Brady Singer, the Reds starting pitcher, talking about his love of motorsports, how he fell in love with baseball.
Sweet.
And so those will be coming out every Monday morning. 19 on the clock will come out on Thursday mornings. And then on Friday mornings, the Gold Standard, focusing on Bengals, Reds, Cincinnati professional sports with Joe Daneman and Charlie Goldsmith.
Yeah. So the lineup is filling out, ladies and gentlemen.
You have more reason to subscribe than ever before.
Yes, exactly. So do it.
And it'll help make those, if you're driving on I-71, you're stuck in traffic like I am every single day, makes those commutes a little less long.
Or if you just decided to live in Anderson.
Yeah, who would do that though?
Hey, you be careful. There's a couple of them. There's a couple of them.
I go to Anderson. I love Anderson. But I made the decision to live on 71.
How dare you disrespect Beachmont Avenue?
Thank you all for listening and for watching this week. We will see you guys next time.
Have a good one.